Hey, Shannon, how are you doing today? Wow, I can't believe it's happening.
I know. It's a miracle.
You and I have been going back and forth with our busy schedules trying to make this thing happen, and here we are. And I'm excited to have you on because I know what we're going to talk about today. It can help anyone in any parts of their lives, but we're talking about entrepreneurship, which can be a little tricky as you start, but also as you grow. And I'm an example of it. I've went through all different parts of the entrepreneurship where you start and you have all those doubts, and then you have some success, and then you have doubts, and then you have more success and you have doubts. So we can talk through all that stuff. So why don't you just tell people a little bit about yourself and how you got into this whole thing of helping entrepreneurs figure out their head trash? Really?
Yeah, head trash. I love it. I might steal that if that's okay, Scott.
Sure.
I love it. So yeah, I've been an entrepreneur for a very long time. I was in the brick and mortar space back in my 20s, owned restaurants. When I got out of that, I consulted with restaurants and had my own marketing firm for a while. And then at about 14 years ago, I founded my nonprofit. We help kids who have lost mom and dad to AIDS in rural Uganda. And at that time, the nonprofit world was a whole new world for me. And I'm an entrepreneur with a nonprofit, not the other way around. So a lot of people kept coming to me for business coaching, for mentoring, and high performance type coaching. And I did that on the side, just really not wanting to damage or have any, interesting like people's opinions about the nonprofit person is doing. So I just did that on the side and was really successful, had lots of high performance athletes and 7 and 8 figure business owners. But that came about because of my breakdown, not because of my brilliance.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
I want to hear that.
Yeah. So, it was right about when I was doing okay. I was getting my master's in business. I was married, went through that adjustment and, but you're still individuals doing your own thing and all that kind of thing. And it wasn't until my son was born when I just had this breakdown where I couldn't figure out how was I going to keep my business going and my nonprofit going and be a good wife and be a good mom. And, it shifted everything for me because as it does for a lot of us, I always joke around like this huge thing happened. I got pregnant, I know that's normal, but for the overworked, striving, hustling, crazy 18 hours. I used to say I'd sleep when I'm dead. I used to say all the hustle mentality, I had it. And I had one of those ugly cry moments, which I always crack up when I say that to a guy, because you didn't have the mascara, but I'm sure you've had those moments.
I have had those moments.
Right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
I just couldn't I figured I'd have to give up something. That was the thinking that I was I'm not enough. I don't have what it takes. And I was literally having that meltdown on my bed and just crying, and honestly was really angry because I was angry at myself for not being able to figure it out like everybody else could, right? Everybody else had it figured out and I didn't. And I was mad at God for giving me all this visionary stuff in my head. I was just
How dare you?
How dare you? And it wasn't a pretty moment, but I had this fleeting thought at that moment of somebody that I really looked up to who had a family and had an amazing 8-figure business, somebody I was coaching. And they were doing well. In fact, they weren't freaking out and they had it all together and they were making massive impact in the world. So that moment allowed me to shift my thinking and go, well, wait a minute. If they can, then I should be able to, right? I can create the world where it all works and it all actually helps each other. And it was from that moment that I became extremely obsessed with what makes people that are in that top 3%, those high performance, high achievement people, what makes them who they are, how do they think, what do they do, what are their actions, how do they approach things versus the 97% of the rest of the world. And don't get me wrong, I was very successful at the time. To the outside world, I had it all together. I had a multiple high 6-figure, almost 7-figure business. It looked great, but I was I couldn't sustain it. So I went to work with that person. I mentored with a different person who had a very successful online business. And really started to understand the way that they thought was different, and the way that they approached life and approached business and approached money and approached time was completely different. It wasn't a one for one. And I got so obsessed that I actually shifted my degree and finished up my PhD in neuropsychology to really study it and to understand like what goes on in the brain for the people who got it and what's happening for the rest of us that it wasn't happening for. And I am so glad I took that left turn, Scott, because it really helped me realize that everybody, that we have what it takes within us to have whatever we want. But those stories and the things that get in the way are the things that hold us back. And once I really understood how the brain is wired and how you can actually use that for your advantage instead of just being on autopilot, it was a game changer for me. My business skyrocketed past 7 figures. I had some really high profile, clients at that time, and then did that one-on-one. And then about 2 years ago, I finally just said a couple things. I said, I'm tired of fundraising. I actually want to fund this nonprofit personally, if I can. That was one high motivator for me. And then another high motivator for me was, I had 17 one-on-one clients at the time, and there was just not any more of me. And I have a huge vision to see entrepreneurs really tap into the power of their thinking and their mind to get the success that they want. And I knew that I needed to bring it online to be able to scale it to where I could really help and transform more than the 17 that I had the ability to influence. So that's the journey. It's been a messy one.
Well, yeah, I could say the same, right? It's like we've all had that messy journey, but I don't think if we didn't have the messy journey, we wouldn't have the stories and we wouldn't have the place where we are, right? It wouldn't have paved the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's funny because I look back at all of the different things that I've done and I'm like, I wouldn't change a thing. Right. It's like it opened my eyes to, what I appreciate and what I want to do. And I do believe that it's there for a reason, and it's to push us a little bit, and figure it out. The big thing for a lot of people, including myself, I mean, even now at the level that I'm at right now, I've got some pretty amazing things that I've accomplished and that I want to accomplish, but I still have this stuff every single day. I'm questioning myself. I'm wondering, am I doing the right thing? Am I going in the right direction? Am I doing all I can to help, the people that do, follow me or, that I influence or whatever. And it's like, you still have those, but you think when you first start, oh man, if I could just get to that level, it'll be perfect.
It's nirvana and you never have anything. Yeah.
And so it's just interesting how it never really goes away, but how you deal with it, I think is more important. And that's what I do want to tap in here with you in this conversation is really like how to get the people that are either questioning themselves because they don't think they have what it takes, or people that have tried something, didn't quite work. So they just throw up their hands and say, I'm just not meant to be an entrepreneur. I'm just not meant to do what I want to do. I just got to go out there and just make a living. Like I have nothing against making a living for something that you truly believe in and that you want to do. But when you are just doing it to earn a paycheck, that's where it comes, like you're just showing up to show up. And I think then we're wasting our lives, right? Like we're not doing what we truly want to do. And, for me, it's family. I want to be with my family. And I don't want the, multi, 8-figure business where I have hundreds of employees. I have friends that have that, and that's good. I'm like, good for you, man. Like, great. But that's not what I want. Like, you and I, like, we're a lot of like, you've got children. Yeah. I've got children. I'm actually going to be going here soon to volleyball here after our interview. And, I'm looking forward to it. Like, that's my life. I would not want to miss that. So let's dig in though a little bit.
Yeah.
Someone is saying to themselves right now, you know what, Scott, I've tried things and I just don't think that I can do this because I don't have the skill set, or I don't have the mindset. They're negative type of person that just feels like everything that they do and it doesn't work for them, but it works for everyone else.
Right. It's outside of themselves.
Yeah. What do we do just to even start down that road of giving themselves that little bit of push to get them to, because once we get them a result, even the smallest, it's game over. Then we can, then we keep going. So
So I love, here's one thing I love, and this is why your tribe follows you, Scott, is the fact that here you are, you've got this amazing business and you're saying, hey, I still struggle with this, but you just know kind of how to kind of push through in the resistance and keep going. So I just want to give like kudos to you for just being real and genuine, because we joke around and we've said it in our mastermind. We're in a mastermind together. It's next level, next devil. Like as soon as you think you get one level mastered and you push to that next level, it's like, there it is again, you know, but it's in a different way. It's never the same.
Right.
And so if you can give me some latitude, I'd love to kind of take just a step back just to help your listeners understand kind of what's going on behind the scenes and why they're self-sabotaging, why they're saying, you know what, I tried and it didn't work. And it boils down to your stories. And, but I don't want to just say that and leave that in a void. I want you to understand like what's going, and this is where the obsession paid off for me. What's going on behind in your brain that's making that happen? So you have like, what's going on, the circumstance or your perception of the circumstance that's going on. And then you have a thought about it. Most people are on autopilot. Most people are going around and they're feeling and they're thinking and they're seeing that as truth, as real. And the reality is your thoughts create your reality. So the way it works in your brain, and we see this neurologically, I can see it in a scan, you actually have a thought and the thought creates the emotion. The thought and the emotion combine, and those create a belief. And that belief becomes the story, the filter, the glasses in which you see everything that you approach. And then from that lens, from that belief, you actually take action, and those actions create the results. And I think nobody would argue with, actions create results, right? But the reality is, if you're thinking that you don't have what it takes and you're not sure if you're enough and they have it, but I don't have it. And you're constantly telling yourself that over and over and over again. So not only is that a belief and it's coloring and filtering how you're seeing things, but if I peeled back and showed you what's going on inside your brain, our conscious thinking brain, the one you and I are talking with and jamming out with right now, is in control, 100% in control. Your subconscious mind, its job is to automate and make easy anything that you repeat over and over and over again in words and in pictures. So that person that you talked about that's saying those things, they might want a very successful business on Amazon or on e-commerce or a very successful brand, but they're telling themselves, I don't have it. Somebody else has it. I don't have it. This is too hard. This is too hard. That is actually your subconscious mind is now going, okay, got it. You don't think you have what it takes. And now it takes that belief, even though you don't want to believe that, but you're told that so often to your subconscious mind. It says, I gotcha. I'll automate that. So now what we've learned through neuroscience is we can tell, it's just hands down, so much peer-reviewed science that we just know this now. 80 to 90% of your daily actions and decisions that you're making are coming from that subconscious place in your brain. So if you've programmed, I can't do this, I don't have what it takes, that's automated, right? And now 80 to 90% of the things you're going to do, the actions you're going to take, and the results you're going to get are from that place. You can see how that neural network that you've built up, it's like a freeway. And I don't know where you live. There's these, in LA, we have these monster freeways, and that's exactly what it's like with no on or off ramp. It's going to go that way 80 to 90% of the time. So you could want something, but if you are not actually really being, and I call it being the creator of your thoughts, understanding that is the framework in which your brain works, and starting to just even be aware of and listen to the stories that you're telling yourself, because those stories are automated and they are running your business. And that's why you're not successful. It's not because you don't have what it takes. It's not because you're not enough. It's not because any of that. You have everything completely and totally within you to do anything you want.
I agree.
100%. we're always, as entrepreneurs, right? We're always looking at outside. I want the system. I want the funnel. I want the this, but Scott will tell you, all my clients would tell you, I would tell you, it's in training the way you're thinking and the way you're perceiving and the way you're showing up on a daily basis, and then priming that into that same system. So if you think of it like when it's on autopilot, it's running your business into the ground and your life into the ground. But if you can pull back from that and think about that system is so hardwired for us, that if we actually remove those limiting beliefs, which I have a step-by-step process for, so don't get panicked, and then just really start to hardwire. And it's a process called brain priming, where you just put into your brain the things that you want to see happen. That same system will automate those thoughts and then create 80 to 90% of your actions based on those results. And it's a game changer, but so many people really aren't aware that they're telling themselves these stories. And once you really see that those stories are really running how you see and perceive everything, it starts to change what's possible for you.
Yeah. And I think, there's a lot we can dig in there, because you just
so much,
a ton. But I think a lot of it is too, it's like we get in a rut, right? Like we get in that, and like you said, those stories kind of keep the wheel going in that same front. And it's like, in order to get out of that rut so you can start going, what is something that someone could just kickstart it? Because I'm a big believer. My mantra is really to take action. Like that's it. Like we have to take action in order to get a result. If we can sit here and think about it, but we're always thinking about, but if I do it and this happens, or if I do it, I'll give you an example. Like right now, we just literally bought a lake house.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a rental.
Yeah. It's awesome.
It's going to be for my inner circle. It's going to be for some workshops. We're going to have an Airbnb. It's an investment property. I'm going to take my family there too, but it's an investment property, and it's a lot of money. Okay. A lot of money.
Yeah.
So I'm like, did I make the right decision? Boy, what if this doesn't work? Man, I don't know. I'm relying on this one guy that's done it before, but I know him, but I've only known him for like 6 months. Like, so all of these things are going in my head. I'm still going to do it. Right. And I'm going to see what happens. And I know that everything will come out good on the other end. It's going to be, some tweaking along the way, but I'm still having those thoughts. Right. Yeah. So it's like, what happens when someone gets to that point where, it's like you're having these thoughts, you're having that, and they're not willing to take action? Is the trick to take the action, even little bits of action? So give us like, how would I get through that if I just keep spinning that like self-doubt wheel?
Yeah. So it is and this is why I resonate so much with your work. It is absolutely, your brain needs to see evidence of the action. But I'm going to shift the thinking here. So absolutely what Scott is saying is 100% taking action, leaning into resistance, leaning into uncomfortable, leaning into stress, and doing it anyway, because that's how 7-figure and 8-figure earners think, period. Like, so you're getting a glimpse of it through what Scott just broke down for you. He's like, this is scary. So in no way am I saying like, I'm going to flip a switch for you and you'll never, ever have another limiting belief. No, you will. And Scott's kind of talking about how that's processing for him, but he's saying, but you know what, in the end, I know it's going to work out. So his belief, his thought is, I've seen this always work out. It will work out. Money, it all works out. And so that belief is filtering his ability to kind of relax. But here is the cool thing. Now, you're right. I don't want somebody just thinking and not taking action, because thinking is just a loop. It's just a loop. And most of these stories, just as a side note, you created as a child or maybe a very young adult. And
I believe that.
You do. And you create them to protect yourself. Obviously, from a child mind's eye, they don't protect you, but in your mind's eye, saying that I can't do it meant you got out of it, or whatever the case may be. So I always tell people, you didn't know this. So like, give yourself grace. You didn't like consciously choose these patterns. They were mirrored for you. The environment mirrored for you. We don't spend a whole lot of time there, because the reality is action does create the movement. Sure. But here's the neat thing to know about your brain. Your brain does not know the difference between doing something physically and what we call priming, which is being in that environment in your mind over and over again, sensing it with all your senses, it does not know the difference. And we've been able to see this through neural scans. The great news about that is, on your way to building a breakthrough business, you, in your mind's eye, can tell your brain what to expect before it even happens. And it makes the results come so much faster. The best way for me to demonstrate this, because that was high and conceptual and sounds great, but let me bring it down to a real situation.
Sure.
So we've done, I've been involved in a lot of great research, and some of the research we've done around this is with piano players. So we'll have a group of people never played the piano, 2 different groups. One group will practice scales for an hour a day on the piano with a teacher and learn scales, physically touching the piano. And then we bring another group in. They'd never touched the piano, but we'd have them do what this is brain priming. We'd have them feel the keys. We'd walk them through the whole scale process, but they never touched the keys. Okay. We'd scan them before and we'd scan them after. Their brain scans look exactly the same, learned knowledge right where it should be. And ironically, this is why messy action is so important. Even though it wasn't done perfectly, those people that never touched the keys before could play scales just as well as the other people. And this has been so consistently repeated. And I've been involved with athletes building muscle. I can tell you a lot of stories about the power that's available for you in your brain. Nothing replaces that action. So your action in the position of your dreams or in the position of what you want to get is giving your brain the information it needs to bring more of it to you. If you can combine that with this process, or I even call it a practice, you and I both work out. So that's a practice. Eating clean is a practice. Becoming the best version of yourself is literally just a daily practice. So you can actually put yourself in that position in your mind. As you're taking action, you won't actually see it come to pass for a little bit, but you can actually show your mind exactly what you want, that end result now, and it just brings you there so much more fast because your brain just doesn't know the difference. And so if I, again, bringing it back to showing you what's happening, where by doing that through the action and through the priming, you're actually building a neural network. So you're building this freeway and you're letting that other self-limiting story freeway kind of crumble. And that freeway then makes things automatic for you, which makes things easier for you. And that's why you hear 7-figure, 8-figure earners, and I'm just using that because of your audience and what they're shooting for, that they'll say things like it was easy and it was effortless and I just tried it. And when you're just getting started, that's kind of annoying because you're like,
it is too.
That's the them versus us. Well, it's nice for them, but not for us. But the reality is the reason that's happening for them is because their subconscious is automating that action. And there's a part of our brain, I'll just use the RAS for short. It's called the reticular activating system. But its only job is to filter in what your subconscious mind believes. So when we have stories that aren't working for us, governing our actions, you've got a system of your brain that's not even allowing in the things that are going to get you that different result. But once you really start in taking action and also priming at the same time, now you're giving your brain that neural network, and this RAS is actually starting to filter in opportunities that were always there. You just couldn't perceive them before because you had too many limiting stories in the way. It's kind of like, and I say this a lot to entrepreneurs because this is how we are, right? We've got our foot on the gas. We're going. It's just our nature, right? We're visionaries. We've got, 17,000 ideas and we're going. That's just how we're wired. But if you haven't done any of this work and you still think it's outside of yourself that's creating the result, you've got your foot on the brake at the same time because you haven't learned how to master your thinking to master your life. And so your foot's on the brake and the gas and you're wondering why you're not getting anywhere. And
that's huge and what I'm hearing is that, yes, we got to take action, but we also have to prime and while we're doing kind of those together, we're building belief and we're seeing, right? And the belief is coming from the seeing, but it's also becoming almost like a muscle in a sense where you're starting to kind of train it or you're training yourself to basically just go through this process. But again, it's for someone that's just like starting or thinking out, they're like, yeah, this sounds great and all, but like how do I prime, or like everybody's different. And it's true. Would you agree that it just means getting into a flow of some kind or a routine of some kind to at least start? It doesn't have to all happen overnight, right? I mean,
no. As a matter of fact, I want to tell you a couple things about this. First of all, because we all now there's a negativity bias. We think things are harder than they really are.
Yeah.
And so it's just, it helped us really well when we were like surviving from tigers, but nowadays it just makes us take longer to grow our businesses. So,
right.
So the reality is I created this brain priming where it's an audio passive. You just sit and listen to it. And I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs have emailed. I just got an email yesterday. It was like, Shannon, I started this, and all they do is listen to it. Why? Because there's fairly common stories that most of us entrepreneurs hold on to. So that's what this priming kind of speaks against or speaks positively into. And so this person said, when I started listening to these primings, I was making $11,000 a month. And I was spending that much on my staff and, on like that. She said I was net zero. She said 2 months later, I was at 30,000.
Wow.
4 months later, I hit $190,000 month, and I'm on track for 7 figures. And I hear this kind of a lot because it's getting that subconscious out of the way, taking the foot off the brake and really allowing yourself. So it's simpler than you think. And, but I think one of the best examples of brain priming I'm going to actually use from one of my podcast guests, because I don't know if you know who Mike Lee is. He's a middleweight champion boxer.
No.
And he was on. He's also an entrepreneur, and he and his sister have a business, and I know them pretty well. Anyway, so he's an athlete. Athletes tend to know how to prime. It's a piece that they get taught, and the rest of us don't. And so I asked him, I said, so what was it like stepping into Madison Square Garden? And for you listening, you can say, well, what is it like to actually have wherever you want it. So whatever that is, fill in the blank.
The unknown, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever it is. But whatever that is, I want you to hold that and hold that through the story. So I asked Mike, I said, so what was that like? I'm thinking this is really cool. What's that like? He's like, you know what? I loved it, but I'd been there 100 times before in my mind. I'd felt the air. I'd seen the crowd. I felt the sweat. I tasted the blood. Now, from a female standpoint, I'm like, ooh,
Right.
But in reality, I was like, wow, that is the best description of a brain priming, because he put himself there.
He's already
and
there,
he experienced it with all his senses, and he just stayed there until it really became, and a lot of people are like, I can't do that. It starts out a very flat kind of feeling, and then as you stay with it, it gets more dimensional, and then you start to really enjoy being in that space, because that's what success looks like. And so now you're showing your brain, this is what it's like. And he said, when I stepped into Madison Square Garden, I'd been there 100 times before. I knew exactly what I needed to do. I'd studied him. So again, studying it, knowing what you need to do, that's the process or the strategy. But his presence and how he showed up happened from doing that priming work. And so we can do that as entrepreneurs. And don't laugh. I have imagined myself like creating the perfect sales page, because I don't do Amazon. Well, I sell coffee for our nonprofit, but and then seeing like a certain amount of people going on and transformations happening, and to me, that's life for me. And I know you're the same way. You love seeing transformations happen, and that fueled me. And so just being able to show my brain that over and over again, it was when I launched that particular product, it was like, yeah. And then you get less attached to the results. Because the reality is, it's going to happen. You've seen it, it's going to happen. You don't get as attached to the how or everything being exactly how you've mapped out. You just kind of open up to you're just walking to it. It's going to be there. And showing your brain and showing yourself, your identity, showing you that it's completely within you. It's completely possible.
Yeah. I think that's great. A great story about putting yourself like in the ring, in a sense, like in business, right? So you're putting yourself in that place. And I actually shared a story on the podcast, and I've shared it with my personal friends too, I remember my wife and I, we created not even a vision board. It was a vision video.
Ooh, I love it.
So, and this is going back probably 10 or 12 years ago. And we had seen someone else doing it and they're like, yeah, just make a slideshow of like your perfect day.
Yeah.
And just put images in there and then just watch it in the morning. It was like a minute long.
Yep.
And we did that and we did it for a little while. And then of course we got off the wagon and whatever. But then I looked back and I'm like, I said to my wife, I go, we're on a Disney cruise right now with our kids. That was on our vision. That was on our vision thing. And I'm not saying like the whole law of attraction. I'm saying like it's a vision of what you want. So you work hard to get there.
Yes.
To take those actions. So you have the, you have the drive to go there. And the way I look at it is in business, in life, in anything that we do, we go in not knowing how to do everything. And as we get to it, then we figure it out. And, our mutual friend, Pat Flynn, is like just in time learning, right? It's like, that's the thing. Right.
Yes.
But I get so many people, they're like, all right, I want to build a house. I want to put the foundation in. What color shingles am I going to put on the roof? I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Like we didn't even get
step.
we missed a few steps in here, Don't worry about the roof right now, right?
Yeah.
And that's how it is with entrepreneurs. Like, and I get that all the time. Like, my listeners are like, okay, like I'm starting the business and I don't even have my product picked. I don't even have my stuff launched yet. Right. What am I going to do about like my website traffic and Facebook ads? And I'm like, time out. We're not even there yet. We haven't even picked our market yet. So I see people getting ahead of themselves and starting to create that, I guess that, all the trouble that could happen that might not even happen. And then that makes them not even start.
And thank you for bringing this up because as much as I love training the thinking, I always bring it down to the practical. And that reality is the way our brains are most productive, the way our brains actually achieve goals is so opposite, not of your way, because you just described it, but of how most people go about it. And you wonder why you're not achieving the goals, but you've got a to-do list this long.
Yeah.
You're crossing 3 things off and feeling like a failure. Well, you've just told your brain what you don't want it to know and don't want it to believe. And the reality is, and what I take my clients through is once you can work through this, I have a mind matrix process of removing those limiting stories and reframing them and rewiring them. And once you really start priming, and I love that your Disney cruise came true. That's happened to me so many times.
Oh, yeah.
And you just look back and it's because you were, I call it accidental priming. You didn't realize you were doing it, but you were really giving your mind. And that's why things like manifestation and all those things that get on the woo-woo side, I can show you your reticular activating system. That's why it brings it to you. But when you're talking goals, like you take, I call your epic audacious goal or whatever that one goal is that you're really shooting for. And then you've got to take that and break it down. I mean, and just reverse engineer it. What steps? And I go as far as if it's more than 30 minutes on a step, break that step down even more. Like what steps do you need to do? Because that's how our brain's wired.
Oh yeah.
And Pat and I both agree to the, I think own stock and Post-it notes. I do it that way. Brain work to me on paper, you get to it faster. You get the result faster. So
I agree.
I'm looking up because I have my whole Post-it wall here, but you have your big goal, just break it down. And then you'll start to notice little categories kind of cropping up. One might be tech or one might be whatever. And then you can kind of group them. And then when you just keep going till you just can't possibly think of another step, it's the most beautiful thing in the world because your brain, which its job is to keep you safe and familiar, not to make you an entrepreneur, by the way, safe and familiar.
Right.
Like we have to wire our brains to become entrepreneurs. Like our brains want to protect us and keep it right the way it is now. So if you're making this huge goal, it's like, I can't see that. That's not right. I'm not going to help you there. But when you break it down into those small steps, it's like, wow, okay. So I encourage people to take 3 of those things a day. Yeah. And that is exactly what you work on. And then you celebrate it so you can get some of the neurochemicals on your side. And it's like compound interest. And you see those bad boys coming off the wall or coming off your list. And yes, you can do more than that, but do 3, celebrate it, recognize that you've just moved your goal forward, and then keep doing things if you want to. Great. But you're already a success for the day. So that creates the right chemicals, the right messaging, the right stories to get that compound interest.
Mm.
And I put mine, like the ones I've done, into a jar, and I just see them stacking up, and I'm like,
Nice.
oh yeah, this is so
I like
doable. So you
Yeah.
take this thing that seemed huge and it becomes so doable. And then, because this is the real world, right? And we have days where we don't feel like doing it, and we're tired or we're sick or the kids or whatever.
Mm.
That's the beauty of having it broken down, because you can go over to a category that's nice and light and easy and just say, you know what, I'll take these 3 things today. And it's 30 minutes, but you still moved it forward. And so you never, ever have lost traction toward that big vision and goal. And your brain just rewards you for that and gives you more motivation and more of all the things that seem so hard to do when you're a few months down the road.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's great to be able to see it. I'm a big writer downer. I got to write everything down and Post-it notes and little reminders. But yeah, chunking it down for me has always been the way. It's like, I need to kind of reverse engineer. We were actually just at my inner circle, and we had a guy that was like, I want to have a $5 million exit in the next 3 years. Okay. Okay, that's cool. And that's a net exit.
Yeah,
he wants to sell. Yeah, he wants to sell it for $5 million. And I'm like, all right. So I said, let's put $5 million up there. And now, what do we need to do per year? What do we need to do per month? And then I'm talking as far as someone that sells businesses, what do they get on a return? You get about 2.5, 3.5, sometimes 4x. Let's figure all that out. But let's reverse it. How much do we have to do per day? How many products do you have currently right now? How many are we going to have to add? So we just reverse engine it down to the smallest thing you need to move forward. And it's just all of a sudden, there's the roadmap.
Yeah.
There it is. Right now, is it going to work perfect? No. But it's going to definitely get you closer to where you want to be. And who knows, one of those things might blow up and you might get to a $7 million exit.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of not staying so attached to the how. You map it out and you take the steps and it's like you hold those 2 things in tension. You see this big goal and you prime that. It's that 10-year vision, right? Or whatever that is. Mine, I can close my eyes and I'm in that beach house. And I can see that, it's so visceral for me. And I do that every single day. But every single day when I come out of that time, I am focused on those 3 things. And it's how our brains are wired. And all of a sudden it just becomes easier and clear, and all that clarity we're trying so hard to gain is just right there in front of you. And it really allows you to rewrite. And that's what I'm so passionate about helping entrepreneurs do. Rewrite the stories that you actually want to believe,
because it is stories. And
stories.
I mean, that's the thing. It's and the other thing is you have that loop that just keeps playing. It's kind of you're like, oh, I just told myself that. I just told myself, it's it's almost it's like a skipping record.
It is.
It just keeps playing, and you have to interrupt that. And a way to do that, I believe, is write stuff down that's kind of keep going, and then try to figure out and reverse engineer back. How do we get through that? And just take those small steps. One other thing I want to ask you before we wrap up is, taking yourself and putting you in an environment to succeed. So I'm a big believer in the people you are associating yourself with or taking and spending time with. I believe that will allow you to go to, just bigger places and, achieve more, but also push you. I don't think you have to be the smartest. I think we've always said that too. We don't always want to be the smartest person in the room. We want to actually learn from people. And you really start to put, I've even my son who's 20, he'll be 21, always in sports. He's always played up a level because he wants to play up, right? The minute you play down, you start to play down to the competition. And I think the same thing goes with the people you surround yourself with. If it's kind of negative and it doesn't work for me and those people are lucky and blah, blah, blah. It's then you start hearing yourself almost thinking and complaining like them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's toxic. And again, if we're talking about priming and showing our brain what we want, think about that. If you're in a room with people that are further along with you or that are really going to have you show up as the best version of yourself, you're giving evidence. And we love evidence. Then we can see it's possible. Then we rise up or we rise down. Absolutely. And one of the things, a key takeaway that I'd love for your listeners to know, like a hack they can start right now.
Oh, cool.
Is I've got a couple hacks.
All right.
Watch what you say.
Ooh, yeah.
because the words you say are what you're priming in your brain, period.
Mm.
So are you overwhelmed?
Mm.
That's a story. The same, I can take the exact same thing on your plate, put it on somebody else's plate, and they're feeling like it's light. What is true? Is it too much or is it too little? It's a story. It's a perception. So am I overwhelmed or am I stuck?
Yeah.
Or, is it just not working? Watch what you're saying to yourself. And I always encourage you to ask through this filter, is what I'm saying bringing me to the best version of myself or keeping me right where I'm at? And
that's a good one. I love that.
Let that just be the filter. You get your baby toe in the water of really starting to train and be aware of how your thoughts are actually creating your reality.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, I agree. And I think that just, again, like everything you just said, I know we just scratched the surface and there's so much more. So why don't we tell people where they can learn more about you? I know you've got a podcast, you've got some resources. Why don't you go ahead and tell people how they can get in touch with you and listen along?
Oh, I love it. That's kind. I do have a podcast, a top 100 podcast called Epic Success with me and Dr. Shannon Irvine. And then you can find me across the socials at Dr. Shannon Irvine. And if you're hearing this and you're like, man, I'd like some extra support in this, like this makes sense, and I actually want to take some action, I would encourage you to jump on and get that brain priming. Scott, give you the link for that.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's something, it's literally, you listen to it when you wake up, listen to it right before you go to bed. And that is, I've seen even just with that and that alone really change people's ability to make the impact that they want. And yeah, I'd love to connect with you. I'd love for you to tag both Scott and I once you listen to this podcast and let us know what you got from it and what action you're going to take. Cause I know he's going to ask you to take action.
Yes, I am. Yeah, no, I think everyone should go check your stuff out because I think this right here is the main reason if we're successful or if we're not, or if we're struggling and if we're feeling certain. I mean, this right here is the thing that pushes you to take that action.
Yeah.
You got to figure out that head trash as we talked about, because it is up there. It's happening all the time. And we just have to know how to control it and we have to know how to deal with it and also set ourselves up for the day.
Yes.
To start off on the right foot. And I can't stress that enough. I've been trying to do morning routines for the past 10 years and I've been always experimenting and playing with new things and new ways to start the day like really, really energized, feeling really, really good. Are there things going to happen in the morning that go bad? Yes.
Yes.
But if we can at least start our day in our own control, we've got a much better chance. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. So definitely, I appreciate you coming on, Shannon. It's been a while since we've been doing. We're going to have to get you back on and unpack a little bit more in some of these other areas. And maybe what I'll do too is I'll see what the audience thinks and what they want, and maybe we'll have you come back on and dig in a little bit more, because I know this is an ongoing thing, an ongoing struggle for people. And the more that we can learn about it and really start to really adopt this thinking, I think we have a lot better chance of succeeding. So once again, thank you so much, Shannon. I appreciate it. And I will be seeing you soon, I think, right?
Yes, you will.
Thanks, Shannon.
Bye.
All right. Well, hey, thank you so much for watching that interview. Hopefully you got a ton of value. And I would love to ask you, is there one thing that you took away from that episode? Like, what is one thing that you were like, yes, I get it, or yes, I'm going to do that? I'd love to hear. And if you can do that, drop it in the comments down below. The other thing that I'd like to ask you is if you have a guest that you'd like to see me interview for an upcoming show, let me know that as well. I'm always looking for new and really exciting guests to help us build our brands. And if you can do that, that would be amazing. All right, guys, that's it. That's going to wrap it up. As always, take care, take action, and I'll talk to you soon.